right, hello and welcome to another expert interview, and I'm delighted to be joined by Kevin Davis, whose book, The Sales Manager's Guide to Greatness, was launched this year. It's doing really well. I think, Kevin, you've been very busy out there spreading the word.
Yep, that's the name of the game in my business.
Yeah, and the book's doing very well, I hear.
Yeah, we're getting some great feedback on it and some traction from some very large corporations that are seeming to find that it's providing some practical solutions that their sales managers can benefit from.
All right, well, let's talk about practical things. If you're a sales manager, and maybe you're finishing out 2017, and perhaps things haven't gone 100% the way you would like them to have. Maybe you haven't reached the quotas. Your salespeople have underperformed. What are some of the things that you should look at doing differently in 2018?
Well, I think the first thing to ponder is, what can I do? If I, as a manager, think the problem is out there,
Mm-hmm.
which is oftentimes how we think, what's the problem with my sales team? Perhaps a different way of looking at that is, what changes can I make in terms of helping my team get better? One exercise I lead sales managers through is I ask them to grade the skill and attitude of each of their salespeople on their team. It takes, on a 1 to 5 scale, takes them 60 seconds to get through that. And then I ask them, well, whose report card is this?
Right.
And the answer is, it's their own report card on their own sales leadership, because as a manager, your team is a reflection of you, and your goal, your success is measured on your ability to improve the performance of your people. And if they're not increasing their performance, perhaps we as a manager need to make some changes as we head into 2018.
So what are a couple of the simple, maybe starting points that you can where you can start as a sales manager to maybe look at yourself first? Take a good step back, look at yourself. What are some of the things that you should be looking for?
Well, one of the bad habits I think many of us fall into is we tend to provide coaching to the people who ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe the sales rep that's working on the largest deal.
Right.
But the people on your team who are the least needy of you are probably the salespeople that you need to be spending the bulk of your coaching time with, because they're the ones that are often the B players. They may not be working the largest deals. Sure. And they may not be coming to you asking for coaching advice, but they're still the B players that with some proactive coaching on your part could develop into A's pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And, and so there's one suggestion for you right there.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one, right? So salespeople, as you said, will often not look for coaching. Even if a sales manager says, I'm available to help, I'm available to coach, I'm here for you. A lot of salespeople are reluctant to take a sales manager up on that. But how can you break that barrier down?
Well, I think the key is we've got to provide better coaching. Mm-hmm. I mean, so often what happens is if we're not being a proactive sales coach, then we're functioning like a Monday morning quarterback. Mm-hmm. And the advice that we're providing our salespeople is perceived as too late. Right. So the example I like to share with sales managers is I love the game of golf, but I'm not very good at it. So if I gave you my scorecard from a recent round of golf and said, hey, John, what do I need to do to get better? You can't really help me.
Right.
That's because my scorecard is the aftermath of what I did. My score were the swings and decisions I made while I was playing. And unless you observe my swings and decisions, you can't really help me get better. Mm-hmm. And yet so many sales managers coach salespeople based on a scorecard, and they're too late. We've got to get earlier. We've got to be proactive. And, so there's other things we can talk about on this. I mean, it's just a ongoing
Yes. So
open-ended. Go
yes.
ahead.
So as you were saying, so part of it is making that conscious decision that you as a sales manager are going to look at maybe your B players that have got a lot of potential, and regardless of whether they're looking to you for help, you're going to figure out how you can sit down and coach them and actually help them to move to be A players. Because let's face it, I mean, moving a decent performing B player to an A player, that's a big revenue gain, right?
Not only is it a big revenue gain, but it's also a big culture change,
Hmm.
because some of the best ways to motivate your senior tenured people is to give them some competition.
Right.
The best sales teams I've ever been a part of had more than one A player at the top,
Hmm.
and they're not competing with quota; they're competing with each other,
Hmm.
and that is just a great team to create. So again, so often what managers do is we either work on our biggest problem, the sales rep
Hmm.
who's struggling the most, or we work with our sales reps that work in the largest deal. Well, that's usually the rep that needs your help the least.
Right.
And so, it's all about kind of taking a step back and saying, what's the most valuable use of my time right now? What can I do as a manager that can have the greatest impact on the sales performance and overall productivity of our team? And as you've alluded to many
Hmm.
times, that's working with B players. And one of the other ideas here, John,
Hmm.
is that there's this psychological principle called the self-serving bias,
Right.
and this is it's common. It's like a sales rep that accepts responsibility for their successes, but blames external factors for their failures. Like, I had a great month, that's because
Hmm.
got great sales skills. Oh, I had a lousy month, that's because of poor leads from marketing. So you
Right.
see that it's kind of I accept responsibility for successes, but push off acceptance of failures. And on a positive note, this quality is what creates positive, optimistic salespeople. This is
Hmm.
where optimism comes from, is the ability to focus on the positives in life. So
Hmm.
so it's a quality that we love as managers in our people, but unfortunately, it leads to salespeople who make mistakes and don't recognize those mistakes, and so they keep making them.
Yeah.
And that's where being a proactive coach, take coaching to your people. Don't sit back and wait. Watch their swings and decisions.
Hmm.
Your coaching quality will get better. They'll perceive it as being more helpful to them in the game rather than at the 19th hole.
Right.
And and then the whole team culture changes.
So since you've written the book and released it, and you've been going around talking about it,
Yeah.
have you seen anything new or evolving around sales management, that maybe technology changes or cultural changes, or changing buyer behaviors are starting to have an impact?
Well, obviously, every sales organization is dealing with increasing competition, and I think that there's a real potential in uh, companies taking a look at aligning their sales approach with the buying cycle. And many of the companies that we've talked to initially have different labels in their funnel, labeled based on the steps of the sales process, but that leads to forecasting that's based on sales rep intuition.
Right.
And if you change that to a buyer centric
Hmm.
sales methodology and embed the buyer behaviors and the buyer outcomes in each step of your sales approach, then you can help your salespeople to become more customer focused. But you can, not to, without too much sweat there, really embed that in your CRM and manage through the metrics of sales performance in real time rather than the Monday morning quarterback stuff.
Hmm. Now, and how do you advise or help sales managers not to get too distracted by shiny new toys, right? I mean, we're a technology company, obviously,
Sure.
pipeline or CRM, and we believe that every company needs a CRM, and you need your sales process defined, and you should be working with it. But then there's so many other tools that keep coming onto the market, and now we have AI tools that are promising basically, you go to bed tonight, you wake up in the morning, all you'll have to do is invoice people because they'll have done the selling for you. How do you help sales managers stay focused on technology that's enabling and help, and not to get distracted into these shiny new toys that are promising shortcuts that may not work for you?
Well, I think the key question regarding the shiny new toys is to ask yourself: are your salespeople performing effectively? I mean, if you're looking for these shiny new toys, that's because there must be some level of
Mhm.
discontent. Well, just take professional football, for example. I mean, no professional football player or college player would ever take the field without understanding in depth their playbook. And yet, when they have a breakdown in their game plan or in against a competition, oftentimes that is based on performing in a way that the playbook really didn't instruct them to.
Right.
So in other words, it's kind of the fundamentals. And so often I think it's a human instinct to say, well, the problem is out there. Let me get a shiny new AI fix to that.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, we're not executing on the fundamentals. We're not opening the calls. We're not preparing properly. We're not focused on the correct customer outcomes as we move through a sales campaign, and therefore we're not coaching based on where the buyer's at. So the point is that there's some low-hanging fruit that I think needs to be plucked
Yeah.
before we head off down the road of complicating um, our future, right? I mean, who needs another implementation, right?
Well, yes, exactly, and I think there seems to be two schools of thought that somewhat conflicting. Heading into 2018, there's a number of thought leaders that I've spoken to and have read their work, and they are, I would say, the people who are saying that 2018 is a back to basics year. It's get back, just like you were saying, just focus on the fundamentals, get back to basics, connect with, actually face to face connect with people, go out, just do the hard yards, if you like.
Mhm.
uh, and then there's another group of people who are in the more, well, we've got all these AI tools and everything, and salespeople better be careful, or they're going to lose their jobs because they're going to be replaced by Roboto or who else. Um,
Right.
I tend to mean that it's never an either or situation, obviously, because technology is, there's some technological advances that help us, but I do believe that uh, going back to basics and executing on some of the fundamentals that you talked about can actually differentiate you in the market now, because a lot of people seem to be abandoning those fundamentals.
Very good point. And uh, again, it's kind of the shiny object thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's something out there, and that must be a solution to our problem. But perhaps look internally, get a little more introspective, and say, are we executing the game plan that we've already got in place? And what fundamental tools,
Right.
right? What core frameworks and
And
tools do we need in order to execute more effectively?
and behaviors, because I mean, I think you'll agree that in your book, the Sales Manager's Guide to Greatness, a lot of the advice is, it's simple, right? Simple
Yeah,
advice. But the trouble with simple is simple doesn't equate to easy. And people often make that mistake, but it's
yeah.
simple advice, but it requires you to commit to it and do it, right? Do the hard work. Even if it's a simple solution or a simple task that you should be doing, it's actually the commitment part is the hard part.
Well, I encourage every sales manager to make a to don't list.
Right.
The things that they shouldn't be doing. I mean, great sales managers are great because they continually ask themselves, what can I do now or in the very near future, like later today, that would have the greatest impact on the overall sales performance of my team. And so often what happens is they're reactive firefighters and not proactive sales coaches. And coaching is one of those things that tends to get pushed off until the afternoon. As we get in, we see all the incoming, we've got all this stuff coming at us, and we're just overwhelmed. And every department in the company wants the sales manager's input on what the heck's going on with the customer and on all these new initiatives. And so they're like pulled betwixt and between in all these different directions. They're getting hundreds of emails a day. And, you know, you can't manage time. You can only manage yourself. And you just have to figure out a way to coach somebody before noon every day. And if you put that into your calendar, just like an important appointment with a customer, you'll get it done. And guess what? Those other things that appeared so urgent, A, some of them will get taken care of by the people that thought they were so urgent and wanted you to do it. And B, if you do get around to it eventually later in the day, by that time, you've already helped make your team better.
Yeah.
So,
no, I think that's a great piece of advice. I love the idea that you don't list, because it's probably one of the most, I'm sure you've heard this countless times when a sales manager go, yeah, Kevin, that sounds great and I'd love to do that, but I just don't have the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
What you're saying is go make the time, because everything on your list is not created equally in terms of the impact it's going to have. So as you say, if you're doing the coaching and you really do it properly, that's going to have a much bigger impact than whatever it is you need to do, that alternatively you were going to do this morning to help somebody with a report or something that basically isn't going to move the needle on revenue.
That's right. Every month I have 8 to 10 appointments that I am never, ever late for. And each of those appointments are airplane flights.
Right.
I never miss a plane flight. And that's because the consequences would be immediate and dramatic.
Right.
And when we managers can look at coaching as important as making an airplane flight, we'll coach more effectively, we'll coach more often, we'll provide better quality sales coaching, and the trajectory of our team will be, the direction we want it.
Absolutely. So listen, that's we're just coming to the end of our time here.
Sure.
Listen, that's great advice. So 2018, create a to-don't list, make the time for coaching, invest in it, and look at, perhaps that middle of the bell curve, those kind of solid performers you have. Look at how you can coach them to being top performers, and don't take no for an answer. Put it on your schedule, keep it, and you'll see some results.
That's it. You got it, John. Nothing to it, right?
Yeah, nothing to it. Just some hard work and focus. Okay, Kevin, why don't you just tell the viewers and the listeners a little bit more about yourself, how they can contact you, how they can learn more about what you do?
I'm the founder of Topline Leadership, toplineleadership.com. I've written 3 books, 2 of them on sales, and this most recent one on the Sales Manager's Guide to Greatness. It's a book that's available in hardcover on Amazon and all major book retailers. But we provide sales management training, sales training based on buyer-centric sales approach, and also custom sales playbooks where we help companies to really align their sales process with the buying cycle and provide prescriptive direction to their salespeople on the specific outcomes they should be seeking as they move through a sales process. So that's what we do. Toplineleadership.com. And thanks for your time, John.
Yeah, thank you, and have happy holidays, and thank you for contributing to SalesPOP this year, Kevin. Look forward to talking to you in the new year.
Thanks so much, John.